Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation and Happy New Year! Today, I'm continuing my countdown of the best figures of 2022 with DC Multiverse. I'm actually not going to be covering Batman characters here, they're going to get their own video. And just like Spider-Man, I'm going to be covering Batman himself, all on his own. I'm also limiting myself to figures that I personally own. Because of that, some of your favorites might not be on my list. Also, just because I own them doesn't mean I got around to reviewing them. Fear not though, for figures who never got their own video, I'll be doing a small mini review here. Now, without further ado, here's the top 10 non-Batman related DC Multiverse figures of 2022. Number 10. Endless Winter Aquaman. The sculpt on this figure is great and the articulation is really well integrated. Even the diaphragm and diaper, which I'm normally not a fan of. That said, for me there are two things holding this figure back. One, not surprisingly, is the side eye. The other is his poor trident, which has actually become a running joke in a lot of my videos. It can be reshaped with heat, but I shouldn't have to. The King of the Sea deserves a better trident and a higher spot on this list, but it only speaks to the better figures which are to come. Number 9. The Target exclusive Martian Manhunter. John comes in a typical McFarlane window box, save of course for the fancy schmancy gold label. On the side we see this labeled as DC Classic, which I really hope we see more of, and on the back we get an efficient, if not kind of boring product shot. If you look closely you can see stars, so it's not like he's in a black void. This Manhunter is mostly just a repaint of the more widely available Rebirth version, the only difference being the harness and loincloth. The cape is also the same mold, and his iconic blue collar's just sort of been glued on. As a result, it doesn't actually connect all the way. Objectively, I think this actually might be the better figure. Leastways if we're talking about paint to detail. That said, if you told me to close my eyes and imagine the Martian Manhunter, this is what I'm going to be picturing. If I did have a couple of nitpicks though, I'm not crazy about the head. Obviously he's an alien and should have an otherworldly look, but the style of the head doesn't really match the body. To me it kind of looks like Darwin Cook. But the most baffling part is that the skin has a cracky leathery look, but the face is perfectly smooth. In that regard it almost feels like a kit bash. As for which Martian Manhunter is the best one ever made, that's a debate for its own upcoming video. But for now, I'm very happy to have this one sitting comfortably at number 9. Number 8. Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. I'm including them as a set because, well, McFarlane did. Not gonna lie, out of all the comic art they've used for these packages, I think this one's my favorite. Just look at all the personality in this. They mostly share the same body, which is mostly a good thing. It's a good, clean, medium-sized build without any McFarlane flourishes on it. They did just paint over the top of the boot cuff, which is a bit distracting. One thing they didn't do, unfortunately, is give Blue Beetle his pop collar. You know, the one we can plainly see back here. On that subject, it would have been really cool if they gave them transparent goggles, but I'd be a liar if I said I didn't absolutely love these head sculpts. This far up, that far down, really great tilt, and all the way around. Swivel hinge shoulders raise over 90 degrees, forward and back with a rotator cuff, bicep swivel, double elbow, wrist balls, and shift in the torso. Ugh. Yeah, this is one thing I do really need to talk about. As we can see, Booster Gold has this point underneath his star, but for whatever reason McFarlane made it so low that it actually gets covered by the diaphragm joint. Is there no reason they couldn't have just painted it up here? The only way to make his costume look correct is to arch him back like this. While we're here, they can arch back this far and hunch forward this far. Really great tilt and twist. Double knee, and you know the drill by now. Accessory-wise, they have trading cards and regular DC Multiverse bases, but they also come with this really cool one. In addition to some floor grading, we get some tubes and wires, got a little wrench over here, and this little guy. Booster Gold actually comes with a cell phone, and considering that torso paint job, taking a selfie is probably how I'm gonna have him posed on my shelf. Hey, who's your service provider? Boost Mobile! If you want to do an action pose though, he does come with his clip-on energy blast. Surprisingly, BB comes with his BB gun. I guess it passed his muster for having a grapple coming out of it. Be that as it may, seeing Blue Beetle and Booster Gold with Martian Manhunter gives me hope that more classic DC characters are on the way. And come to think of it, Martian Manhunter might be just a bit short. Number 7. Parallax. As a gold label Walmart exclusive, this figure was a real pain to get. I also found it to be kind of divisive. A lot of fans were put off by the shade of green that they used or the see-through hands. The temple should have been a lot more gray and the hair a lot brighter of a brown. And then there's the fact that he kind of looks like Todd McFarlane. Mine had some defective paint that I really need to get around to touching up. For what it is, I like it a lot, but there is one Green Lantern villain figure that I like just a little bit more. Number 6. Grifter. I mainly picked this figure up as fodder for a Hush custom I really should get around to, but I got a lot of requests to review him and I do understand why. He comes in a basic DC Multiverse window box and is based on his look from Infinite Frontier. When I think of Grifter, I imagine that early 90s Wildcats design, but this really works too. I particularly like the shorter coat more than I expected. As always, McFarlane's texture game is on point, and I love the fact that they included a gray dry brush to bring out all the detail in the boots. Articulation-wise, the collar and the mask keep him from looking up and down, but side to side's no problem. Swivel hinge shoulders raised 90 degrees, forward and back, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and then all the way at the end of the arm he has McFarlane wrist balls. Shifting the torso, he has a diaphragm joint and dumbbell waist. He can arch back this far, which is decent, and hunch forward this far, which isn't terrible. He also gets a bit of tilt and twist. Below the pouch belt, he has a typical McFarlane hips, nice amount of twist in this one, double jointed knees, and McFarlane ankle balls to do all the McFarlane ankle ball things. In addition to the usual figure stand and trading card, he comes with a knife and a sword, nice details on the hilt and a bit of a serrated edge. Of course, most of us would have preferred his guns, but Warner's gonna Warner, and despite not having any other Wildcats to play with, he does scale pretty well with the rest of your DC collection. Hey man, mind if I borrow that? Oh yeah! I may have only got him for fodder, but now that I've given him a proper once-over, I kinda want to have one to keep for myself. Number 5, the Endless Winter Frost King. I only wanted to include one Build-A-Figure on the list, and it was a tough choice. Starro's cool, but he's mainly just a big bendy toy. But I have to admit, Atrocitus was pretty impressive. In a wave mostly comprised of just Blackest Night zombies, I feel like he kinda got lost in the shuffle. One thing I did point out that I would like to reiterate is just how much I like this waist. No ugly diaper here. That said, as an action figure, this one is just way more visually interesting. I really like the use of translucent plastic for the ice crystals. Between the fur and armor, there's just lots of different textures and details going on. He's also versatile enough that you could use him as a frost giant for Thor, or put him in just about any fantasy display. He came out so early in the year that I kinda forgot about him and never put him together. Now that I have though, I've really warmed up to him. Number 4. Godspeed. Thanks to the heavily delayed Flash movie, we were given a lot of speedsters this year. They range from okay to okay to okay. And a few of them are on that same tired DC Rebirth body we've been seeing for years. All that being said, this figure was very refreshing. It was faithful enough to the comic, but dynamic enough that you could put it on your live-action shelf. It also came at just the right time for the updated ankle and wrist balls to be brand new. As Barry's villains go, I prefer Reverse Flash, but in the race of action figures, Godspeed takes first place. Technically fourth. Number 3, Future State World of War Superman. I was determined to only have one Superman on this list, and the choice was pretty difficult. I mean, maybe not that difficult. I love the beard on Solar Suit, but it's hardly the first black costume Superman we've ever seen. Ultraman technically isn't Superman, and I had way too many nitpicks about that one. Page Punchers has a lot going for it, but isn't really quite my cup of tea. He also technically isn't a DC Multiverse figure. He's a Page Puncher, which is why Constantine isn't on this list, and why the Mortal Kombat 11 Batman Who Laughs won't be on that list. For me, the only real competition was Hush. If I'm honest, this is my favorite DC Multiverse Superman this year, but it's also just a repaint of Superman the Infected with a new head. World of War is a 100% new sculpt and represents a version of the character we've never seen in plastic before and may never see again. What tips it over the edge for me is the head sculpt. If you saw my video, you'd know it's extremely versatile, and I predict that I'm going to be using it in head swap videos for years to come. Number 2. Necron. Similar to Superman and the Frost King, I wanted to limit myself to only one Megafig on the list. Looking at Necron, and for me there was no contest, though a strong case could be made for Sabek. Also, if any of you were wondering, yes, I do have Mongol, and yes, I absolutely will be reviewing him. Here's the thing though, I already reviewed Necron, and I love him. I love his creepy, ghoulish face. I love the hole punch in his chest with all the dry brushing. I love the combination Black Lantern sickle, and just all the creepy textures and details throughout. I love the figure so much that I was debating on making it number 1 right until the point I recorded this video. And even then I kinda went back and forth. Before I reveal number 1, I do want to showcase one honorable mention, the Target exclusive gold label Kyle Rayner Green Lantern. Kyle's my favorite Lantern and I love this figure, but for the purpose of this list I only wanted to have one Green Lantern, and I simply felt that Parallax had more going on. Don't worry though, he'll be getting his own very special Versus very soon. And my number 1 non-Batman DC Multiverse figure of 2022 2022 is a tie! Black Adam and Shazam. The moment I took this out of the package, I knew I was looking at something very special. Between the likeness and the sculpted details on the costume and all the paint applications, it really felt like a labor of love. You could say the same thing about the movie. Not perfect, but definitely a lot of heart and effort. Considering that this is the kind of likeness we were getting last year, the improvement is clear. Then I saw Shazam and I was floored. Not just the sculpt, but also the rosiness in his cheeks and all the painted detail to make him feel more like a person. Without a doubt, these are the two best DC movie figures McFarlane Toys has made so far. Seriously, just look at all the detail in this costume. Great job on the gauntlets. I love the boots. We've got the gold fringe on the back of the cape. They even painted the dark red panels on the sides, which they could have skipped and most people probably wouldn't have even noticed. I'm going to be reviewing this figure closer to the movie's release, so I'm not going to be going into all the details here, but these two figures really encapsulate what 2022 was to DC. It was a time of transition, a time of putting your best effort forward, and maybe not having it fully appreciated. A time of uncertainty, never knowing what's coming next. Sadly, these two are probably never going to meet except in action figure form. Even so, we do have them in action figure form, and, come what may, that's worth celebrating. How does my list compare to yours? Sound off in the comments below. For another 2022 Top 10, check out this one on Spider-Man, or for more DC, check out this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.